Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today we're talking about something we've actually never talked about, I don't think, out of 300 plus episodes on this show. And it's anxiety in business and navigating anxiety as an entrepreneur. So I brought on my friend, Robyn Graham, who has overcome anxiety herself. She actually just launched a book helping people overcome anxiety. And I think it's just a really important topic that it doesn't get talked about enough. And so we dive in. She talks about her 5 C's to navigating anxiety, the triggers, how to overcome it, all kinds of good stuff. I think this is a really important episode. So make sure you share this with an entrepreneurial friend, especially if you're like, I know they're struggling with this, because to be honest, we talk about like a lot of times we struggle and nobody knows, or like we see the highlight reel of everyone else, but we don't know behind the scenes what's actually going on and if they're struggling with anything, right? So share it and let's dive in. Hey, Robyn, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rachel, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to chat. So let's start and just tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
So I am a brand strategist. I had kind of an interesting journey to get here. I actually went to college, got a doctorate in pharmacy, and then 11 years ago, transitioned my career, followed my passion, became a professional photographer, and I worked with executives for corporate headshots. And then I worked with entrepreneurs to do their branding photography, their website photography, all of that kind of stuff. And I quickly realized that many women didn't know or understand how to truly build a strong foundation for long-term success. They didn't know how to use their images to start for SEO, but then they didn't know how to do all of the other things in a simple way. And they were frustrated, overwhelmed, and I saw an opportunity that I could help them. I became certified in brand strategy. And so now today I am a brand strategist and business coach. I focus a lot on mindset with my clients. I've had a lifelong journey with anxiety. And because of that, I recently wrote a book called You, Me, and Anxiety. The book was written for teen girls in mind, but there is a parent book as well. And the content of the book and then the journal really could be used and applied to anyone in any walk of life, whether you're a parent, a teen with anxiety, or an entrepreneur with anxiety. There are tools, techniques, methods, all the things that I have tapped into and used to navigate my own journey with anxiety.
Okay, so I'm definitely wanting to go like the anxiety route, and let's talk about this because we've never talked about anxiety on the podcast before. And I've experienced anxiety before when we were living in northeastern France, where there was no sunshine, and that definitely triggered it for me. So let's talk about anxiety in business. Like, what has been your experience, your own personal experience, and then working with other people to help them manage it?
Oh my gosh. So a lot of times people don't understand that what they're experiencing is anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And, anxiety will cause fear. It'll cause, when we have fear, then we have procrastination. If we have procrastination, ultimately that will lead to paralysis because we're stuck in that place of unknowns. Or overwhelm. We don't know what to do. And as entrepreneurs, we have so many demands on us to be successful. We have so many decisions to make on a daily basis. How do we want to present this to our audience? Who is our audience? Discovering that clarity. And if there is a lack of clarity, that's going to cause even more anxiety. Mm-hmm. And then you have, just the entire strategy of how to create content, how to make sure that it resonates. And if you don't have clarity, that anxiety level around all of those things is just going to continue to rise. Then we have all of those external influences as well. So if you're genetically predisposed to anxiety and you have lived with it for a long time, then it may be even worse or it may present itself sooner than later. But the other problem for entrepreneurs is that we are inundated with all of these things online, the shoulds. Then we see these people who are having success. So we think we need to do whatever they're doing. And the reality is we're only meant to be doing what we're called to do, what our purpose is leading us to. And so when we start looking at all these external factors and these people that, make the entrepreneur world look easy and simple and 6 figures and 7 figures and 8 figures, and you should be doing this, that, and the other, that level of anxiety rises because you feel so inferior and so confused over what's happening around you that you're not where
I
everybody
think
else
it's
is.
so important to point out here though, that people are only going to share the highlight reel and they're never going to share like the launch that failed or like the struggles that they've had, you know? And so you're seeing highlight reel after highlight reel over and over and over again. And so of course you're gonna be like, I don't measure up. I'm not like them.
Right.
I can't do this.
But when you have anxiety, your brain goes to this negative cycle. And so you can't stop those thoughts automatically. So it just builds and builds and builds. So that anxiety, I reference in the book, it's like a Ferris wheel. When you are inundated with these negative thoughts, they just keep coming in and coming in and coming in. And, you know, the Ferris wheel goes faster and faster after a little while. And none of those negative thoughts are getting the opportunity or having the opportunity to get off of the Ferris wheel. And that means no positive thoughts are coming onto the Ferris wheel. And so it's this cycle of negative thoughts. And so the anxiety just continues to rise. So you have to learn to be aware of the triggers. What is triggering that anxiety in you? What is triggering those negative thoughts that are preventing you from feeling confident, finding clarity, trusting in yourself? It's like a vicious cycle.
So you got to figure out what the triggers are. Okay. So once we figure what's a good way to figure out like what our triggers are?
So a lot of times anxiety will present itself in physical manifestations. So maybe it's a stomach ache, maybe it's inability to sleep, maybe it's a headache. It could be, you know, just feeling edgy, irritable, anger rising for no apparent reason. Anything like that is a symptom of anxiety. And when you start to recognize, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this way again. Why am I feeling this way? And then evaluate, okay, was I just on social media and did I see something that triggered this? Was I interacting with someone who was, you know, negative and heavy and brought me down? Was I, or did I just experience something that, you know, maybe I failed, maybe I have to do a video, or maybe I have to do a presentation? What are those things that are triggering these physical manifestations within your body? Our brain and body are so interwoven that when our mind is doing something, our body's doing something in reaction. And so just really focusing in on when you are experiencing those feelings, those emotions, those thoughts, what's happening, what experience triggered that. And it takes time because it could be, you know, there could be multiple triggers. Like for you, you know, the weather, if you know that whenever the days are, and I know you live in Florida now, lucky you.
So it's no problem. I see
it's no
sunshine
problem
right now.
Yeah. But like for me up here in Pennsylvania, it's gray almost all of the time in the winter, and it's cold and it's icy and you don't want to be outside. And that can, when we're not giving ourselves that grace, or we're not able to give ourselves the grace of sunshine, outdoor, fresh air, exercise, all those things, those anxiety levels will build. And then what happens if we don't recognize those triggers, you know, and we don't have a strategy in place? So for me, I know that by the end of January, I need to get out of Pennsylvania and I need to go to Florida just for my mental health.
Come visit.
Right. And that affects everybody around me. It affects the whole level of emotions in my home when I am anxious and I'm irritable and I'm down. So it's really important to recognize that whatever that trigger is, and then create a strategy so that you can navigate that in a way that you have an out, you have a way to navigate it and I don't want to use the term overcome, because I think, you know, just like if you were still living in France, you may experience those same things every single year. But the first time you experience, you don't know how to navigate it. The second time you experience, now you realize what the trigger is. So you can create a strategy around that. So you can navigate it better every single year you experience it. But if you don't understand what's happening, if you haven't recognized what's happening, you can't navigate it around it.
Yeah, it was such a weird experience for me because I've never had anxiety before. And so like figuring out, I think it's the weather that's actually causing this. And like for me, it showed up of like my chest tightening and like heart beating and like harder time to breathe. It was such like a surreal moment for me because I never had that before. Like I've never had mental health issues. And so I was like, this is wild. Like what's going on? So I want to talk about coping. Before we get there though, do you think there are some things that we do in our business that are naturally going to cause anxiety that are inevitable?
Yes, 100%. If you're type A and you're a perfectionist, you're going to definitely experience more of this because we put so much pressure on ourselves to do everything right. And we have to accept the fact that imperfection is so much better than being perfect, and showing up as your genuine self, and aligning yourself in everything you do, including the clients that you take on, making sure that all of those things align with your values will help you navigate anxiety. When you're aligned with your values and your purpose, you're going to feel so much more at peace, and then you're going to have clarity. And that's a big thing for entrepreneurs. If you don't have clarity because you're consuming all this content and it's making you think, well, if they're doing that and we do the same thing, maybe I should do it that way. No, 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 no. You have to stay aligned with your values and what you know is your purpose, and how and who you need to serve. You have to continue growing in that state of clarity. And it's not always easy for people, and especially if you have anxiety, because you're going to continuously have doubts. So you have to really stay grounded in that. For me, journaling is a good practice for that. The other thing is social media. If when you are consuming content and sitting on social media, how do you feel when you get off of it? Yeah. Do you feel rewarded? Do you feel inspired? Do you feel like ready to take action? Or do you feel irritable? Do you feel, down? Do you feel dissatisfied? Is it dragging you down, or is it building you up? Don't do the activities that are bringing you down. As entrepreneurs, that's the beautiful thing, right? We have freedom. We can choose what we do. Yeah. If we have a podcast like you and I do, we can choose to do that podcast every single week. We can choose to do that podcast every other week or once a month, but we don't have to feel guilty or ashamed or anxious because we're making a shift that aligns with our values and our life, just because everybody else is doing something different.
I think that's really important, because you see certain entrepreneurs teaching a specific strategy or doing things one way, and you think you should do it too, when in reality that could cause you a lot of unnecessary stress, headache, anxiety, like all of those things. And you get to build a business that's aligned with your values and what's important to you and what will make you feel good in the end, and not cause anxiety. So like, I know like John Lee Dumas has a podcast that goes up every single day, or he used to, I don't know if he still does, Entrepreneur on Fire.
Yeah. Entrepreneur
For
on Fire.
me, I'm like, there's no way, like every day, day after day for like a year, I'm like, that's amazing. He can create that much content. But for me, I'm like, what's the most important thing for me? Being consistent and having a family life, right? And that at this point in my life and business does not equate to doing a daily podcast. It'd be amazing, but no.
It's just like anxiety and body image kind of go hand in hand. A lot of people that suffer from anxiety have body image issues or anorexic, bulimic, whatever. And, when you think about like these movie stars, these actresses and they're models and they look perfect. But what we don't see is what they go through to have that persona. They're limiting their intake of food and beverages. They're exercising nonstop. They have a trainer. This is their full-time job. John Lee Dumas has an entire team that is producing his show, and he is sponsored. So, he has the revenue for his show. He has a team for his show. He's not like us who are doing it. Yeah, we have a team, we have a podcast editor, but it's a different level of team.
Right.
And so we have to keep that in mind. We can't compare ourselves. It's not apples to apples. We're comparing apples to pineapples. It's totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we know our triggers for anxiety. We start to just become curious and learn more about them. How can we cope?
So here's what I do. And this has really helped me tremendously. And it's also helped my clients. So when you have negative thoughts coming in, anxious thoughts coming in, you have to catch them. Now, this takes practice, just like it took time to identify those triggers. It's going to take time to consistently catch these thoughts. And that's why it's work. It is not something that you are going to overcome overnight. And you may never overcome it, but at least you'll have the tools to navigate it. So catching those negative thoughts, challenging them. Are they rational? Like, could this be proven in a court of law? What about this thought is true? If there's nothing around that thought that is true or rational or cannot be proven in a court of law, then let's change that thought. Let's change it to something positive. So if you think about maybe you have a speaking engagement and you're going to be presenting on a topic that you are very familiar with, but somebody else, because you've seen the list of attendees for this conference, that somebody else in the audience is an expert in your area of expertise as well. So those negative thoughts are going to come in. Well, oh my gosh, they're going to be judging me. They're going to think that I don't know as much as they do. People are going to look at them and they're going to go to them for the information instead of listening to me. All of these negative thoughts could be coming through your mind, but the reality is you were asked to speak. You were the person that the conference coordinator came to and asked to be on that stage. You have the platform to now educate and teach and engage with other people. And it doesn't matter if that person is there, because the people that are there to hear you speak are aligning with you and your message and your values and your business. So you have to change those thoughts. The more you change those, so you catch, you challenge, you change. The more you change those thoughts and go through that process of catching, challenging, changing, the more you're going to be able to control your thoughts. And I can give you an example. I had a thought yesterday, or maybe it was this morning when I was journaling it, about a program that I'm going to start and implement and launch later in the year. And I had this thought that just went through my head, like, I'm really not an expert in this. Should I be doing this? So I immediately caught that thought, and then I journaled around that thought. Like, yes, I am. I do have experience on this, and I am an expert in this because I've lived it. I've done it. I've now taught other people to do it, So how much faster I could have sat all day long thinking, oh, I better not do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to work on that because it's not going to work. Nobody's going to want it, but instead I flipped that switch, navigated it. And now I feel confident that I can do this program. I can implement this program. I can impact lives and change the course of other people's journeys, which sounds fantastic, right? So you can see that level of, once you start to control those thoughts, how you can build your confidence and start feeling like, okay, I've got this. When those negative thoughts come in, I can navigate this. And it's just like, maybe you're doing a discovery call for a new client. And if you go into that call with negative thoughts, you're going to have negative energy. That person's not going to buy from you. So it's really important, because we have so many situations every single day in our businesses that cause anxiety to rise. And so if we can catch those negative thoughts, those anxious thoughts, and navigate them up front, we're going to have more success.
Yep, for sure. So those were the 5 C's, right? Can you repeat them again?
Absolutely. Catch, challenge, change, control, confidence.
Okay. Got it. What are some other things that we can do just to take care of our mental health? Because this is something that we're so focused on our business and taking care of other people that this is something I feel like it just gets overlooked, until it's a problem, and then you have to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it comes down to healthy habits. If you have a true diagnosis of a mental health challenge, or mental health disorder, whatever, then it's really important that you have somebody in your corner to help you navigate that. A therapist, even speak to your primary care doctor about it, whatever. But there's scientific data that, it takes a good 6 months if you are in the throes of anxiety or depression, a good 6 months of a combination of therapy and medication until you can maybe wean yourself down off of that.
Can I add something there?
Data.
I think there's a definite, I don't know, stigma against therapy or medication for mental health, and even talking about mental health. And so there's nothing wrong with going to therapy. I think it's smart to go to therapy and just to have someone to talk to, especially if you're in business, especially if you're a human, just to have someone that you can talk to about the things that are going through your head.
Somebody who's non-biased.
Exactly.
They're not going to judge you.
Exactly.
They are there simply to listen to you and give you some guidance, maybe exercises to do. So that's one thing. I highly, highly, highly encourage therapy.
Do you know where we can find a good therapist?
So there are several, and you know what? I can give you a couple of links that I actually have as resources in the back of my book. So I don't know them off the top of my head, but I will give those to you by email, and then you can share them in the show notes if that sounds good.
Yeah.
But there are actually now, that's one of the blessings of COVID, is that a lot of therapists are doing online therapy sessions.
Yeah.
And so you have more, there are a lot of organizations now where you can tap into therapists online. The key is to find someone that's a good fit for you. And sometimes you meet with a therapist and they're not a good fit. You don't click, and you don't stop there. Don't
Yeah, it's
stop
not
there.
therapy that didn't work. It was like the match wasn't good. There was
Exactly.
actually Shalene Johnson did a whole podcast on how to find a good therapist on the Shalene show. So that
Yeah,
might be
I
a
love
good
her.
resource.
That would, yeah,
For
I
our
would definitely
listeners
link that.
to listen to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's, you want to make sure that for one, their values align with yours. If you're a Christian and you only want a Christian therapist, then
Yeah.
you want to look for a Christian therapist. If you want someone who does techniques like hypnosis or any of those things, that's a completely different level. So you want to make sure that whatever their practice is aligned with your values and how you want to engage with someone. So that's step number one. So, but definitely listen to that podcast from Shailene, because that's an excellent resource. The other things are just developing healthy habits. Sleep is huge for anxiety. Getting 8 hours of sleep a night is huge, because we know that sleep regulates everything in our body. So the more sleep we have, the better we're going to feel, the less anxious we're going to feel, and the healthier our bodies are going to be. The healthier our bodies are going to be, the healthier our minds are going to be, and vice versa. Exercise is key. When we release those positive endorphins in our body, that helps regulate all of those stress hormones like cortisol. So that's very important. Really doing journaling is also very important. And you can take those negative thoughts and journal around them and change them on paper. There's a significant connection between our brain and writing things down. So you're really engaging all the senses. And so that helps tremendously as well.
I'll add 2 resources in there that we can add to the show notes. Tanessa Shears is a biohacker. I had her on the podcast. I can't remember the episode off the top of my head, but I actually worked with her for a couple of months, and she helped me really like maximize my sleep. Amazing. Like such a smart thing to do, because a lot of times we're so worried about our diet and our exercise that we forget about sleep, and we're like, and then we wear it as a badge of honor of like, oh, I only got 5 hours of sleep last night. No, like get your 8 or like however many you need to feel good. So Tanessa shares her podcast, and the one we did with her, I'll link that in the show notes. And then Rachel Luna does some really good work around journaling. So I've had her on the show as well. I'll make sure to link that episode.
Yeah, she's the author of Entrepreneurs Are Full of Crap, right? I
don't know.
Confidence, resilience.
Yes, maybe
authenticity and perseverance, maybe, I think. But yeah, she's great. She's great.
Love her. She's so sweet.
Yeah, love her too. And she's in Florida too, I think. She lives.
Yeah, she's in Jacksonville. We meet up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then diet. You mentioned diet and eating healthy foods. We know that too much caffeine is going to stimulate anxiety. It's going to give you, when you drink too much coffee, it gives you the jitters, and that does not help anxiety at all. But eating healthy fruits and vegetables, I always recommend organic when possible, just because I fully believe that when we're putting foreign things in our body's going to react to them. But, eating a well-balanced meal is throughout the day, getting those healthy foods in your body, it's going to help your brain function. And so, those are just a few of the tips, but I think if you live a healthy lifestyle, you adopt healthy habits to have a healthy mind. And I actually have, meditation is another one. So there are a lot. Tapping is another one. It's a great resource. So, and I interviewed Dr. Katie Nall on my show when she actually did a tapping session with me, and it's on my YouTube channel.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was really cool. But, actually she lives in Florida too, which is so funny, but
everyone come to Florida. It's nice here.
Yeah. But anyway, that's another great way to keep yourself grounded and at peace as well. Just minimal tools, but I actually have on my website a free download for having healthy habits, creating healthy habits for a healthy mind.
Awesome.
So if anybody wants to download that, they can download that.
Yeah, we'll make sure to link that in the show notes too. Amazing. What are the best books you've read?
Books as in for anxiety, or just generalized books?
Anything you think would support our audience?
Okay. I love the big leap.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling with time is another thing that gives a lot of anxiety. And I don't believe we can manage time. I think it's about setting boundaries. And when we set boundaries, we can decrease anxiety. And I love his example of Einstein time. And I actually speak to that a lot as well. So anyway, I would say the big leap. It's great.
The Big Leap. Got it. What
By
does
Gay
it mean
Hendricks.
to Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap? We've had that actually recommended quite a few times on this show. So it's a good one.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to make an impact?
Oh gosh, this is such a great question. For me, it's seeing other people recognize their strengths and then taking action on them to accomplish their goals, their dreams, and become the person they want to be.
I love it. Where can we connect with you?
I always say my website's the best place because you can find everything about me there. It's therobyngraham.com. And I have the podcast, The Robyn Graham Show. And then the book is publishing March 15th. So depending on when this episode airs, the book will be available on Amazon.
Cool. Well, thank you just for taking the struggle, something that you've struggled with, and using it for a greater purpose to help other people. I think that's amazing. I'm really grateful that you were here and happy to get to know you more. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor, Rachel.